Okay, thing two in today's Washington in Focus Daily broadcast. More than 30 states now, 31 states have opted in to or said they will be opting into the federal scholarship tax credit program, which enables eligible taxpayers to claim a federal tax credit of up to $1,700 for qualified contributions that then they can direct to scholarship organizations of their choice. And these scholarships can go to public schools, private schools, they can be for any number of things. You can specifically love a certain scholarship organization that operates in Washington that helps kids with special education programs. Maybe you have a special tutoring organization. Maybe you want to help out a transportation scholarship organization. You can direct that. You get to take the $1,700 off your federal income tax. It's a tax credit, and one for one, those dollars then can get directed. The bugaboo here is that unless Washington opts into this program and Governor Bob Ferguson opts us into this program, we will be directing our $1,700 tax credit to another state that has opted in. So here is Washington Policy Center's Education Center Director, Vicki Murray, with a little bit more on that.
So about 90% of all students in Washington state would be eligible for a K-12 educational scholarship. We can already take that credit. So let's say, I write a $1,700 check to an SGO. That SGO pools donations and awards scholarships to cover expenses at any public school, any public charter school, any private school, both secular and religious, and homeschoolers if they're considered a school under state law. So we can already take that credit. And conservative estimates suggest that each year, if just 30% of Washington federal taxpayers write that $1,700 check, and you can write any amount up to $1,700, we would generate over $700 million annually for our public and private school students here in Washington state. Carlene, here's the only question still on the table, is whether or not we can donate to scholarship granting organizations in Washington, or whether that $700 million is going to flow to SGOs in other states. Here's why. Governor Ferguson must opt our state into the program. So he has until January 1st of 2027 to opt us in. If he does not opt us in, we can also claim that tax credit, but it's going to benefit the now 31 states that have formally and informally said they are going to opt in, which means we can send our money to Idaho, Montana, Mississippi, or even New York, because New York was the most recent state to formally opt in. And you want to know why? The governor there said, I can't in good conscience let, in their case, over $1 billion leave the state every year. When, think about it, most children attend public schools. Public schools through their students would be the massive beneficiaries of this program.
Now, up to now, Washington's Superintendent of Public Instruction, Chris Reykdal, has stated he is opposed to having Washington join this program. He suggests it's going to just pull more money from public education and put it into private education, which is not true. There's not anything about this program that would pull any current money or funding, whether it comes from the federal government or the state government, into education. There is nothing that suggests that is going to happen. This is additional money. This is you, Joe taxpayer, saying, I want a $1,700 credit from my federal education dollars to go to a scholarship of my choosing. But again, we have to opt in Washington state. Now, I did ask the Superintendent Reykdal about this specifically during a press conference back on February 5th. This was his response to my question directly to him. Why not opt us into this and put more money into Washington education programs?
I'm not vehemently opposed. I want it to go back to Congress because it's so ill-conceived. It doesn't have rules around it, doesn't have shape around it. You have unelected officials who are going to control potentially hundreds of millions of tax dollars. You're going to send public tax money to private institutions potentially. We don't have guidance yet from the U.S. Treasury Department. They put out sort of political statements, but no real guidance. So what I have said is families with kids in schools consistent with this affordability approach absolutely need a tax credit for having kids for school, public and private. That can be done through the tax code, not by the state picking and choosing kids who are going to get scholarships to fund religious education. I don't think that's appropriate, but there's a way to get every family, public or private, some more help. And I think if it goes back to Congress and they actually turn this into a tax credit for families, that's the way to go. If they don't choose to do that and they say it's up to each state, I suspect at some point we will be in, and we should be in, if we can control what that looks like. Giving it over to people who are unelected and unaccountable to drive taxpayer money into religious institutions and for-profit schools is not consistent with our values.
Now, at the time, Superintendent Reykdal told me in my follow-up question to him that they had not received enough guidance from the U.S. Treasury Department as to how all this would work. But just last week, Treasury issued some new guidance, some further details. And Murray at Washington Policy Center told me that, you know, any state that has questions about this can certainly receive additional guidance from Treasury along the way. It's unclear if OSPI received that guidance from Treasury. I reached back out with a follow up today to ask them, were you part of this? Did you receive the guidance from Treasury? Do you have further questions that haven't been answered? And I did not receive a response. But again, the pressure is now increasing on Governor Ferguson and other holdout states to get on board.
All these governors have to make a simple decision. Every one of us as federal taxpayers can now take this credit. The only question for our governor, along with the governors of other holdout states, is do we want our federal dollars to go to the IRS or flow out of state to other students and other schools, or do we want to keep those funds in states? I don't see why this is such a tough decision. Again, this should be a no-brainer. It's conservatively $700 million annually for our students and our schools. Opt us in.
Now, Governor Ferguson did not respond to my emails yesterday or today asking if he has made a decision, if he has further questions about how the program will operate and what his, hesitation is at this point with getting on board. I also reached out to the Washington Education Association to find out what their opposition is really all about. Why would they be opposed to this? Because again, this isn't any redirection of public education dollars into the private education system or charter schools or anything else. You, the taxpayer, get to say, here's my $1,700 tax credit. Thank you very much. I get to take that off of my federal income taxes, which is a break, right? But I also then get to direct it wherever I want to. But if we don't opt in, we still can take the tax credit, but then we had to send it to some of the other states that have opted in: Idaho, Montana, Colorado, New York. Yes, we have some Democratic states that have opted into this, but Washington is not yet among those.